So, Mr. Ziglar, welcome to Creation Podcast, Surove Strasti. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Well, thank you for having me on. What an honor. And I will say this, it'll be yours is obviously the most powerful podcast in Croatia. It's the best one I've ever been on.
Let's see. I've been to the United States like a year ago and did my first international interview with, maybe you know him, Christopher Hadnagy, social engineering, something rings a bell. And I first read your father's books like 15 years ago.
Okay.
I worked in a speed reading school, and I've seen there, like, I think the name of the book was "See You at the Top."
Right.
That was the first book there. So after that, I've read "The Secrets of Closing the Sale," and yesterday I've read your book,
Awesome.
"Choose to Win."
Choose to Win.
Yeah.
So you're a speed reader and you read it like in what, 20 minutes?
No. It took me like two and a half hours.
Okay.
How long did it took you to write it? Like the whole life, right?
It took me 53 years to write that book.
Yeah. So Tom Ziglar is the famous author of the famous father and the famous family, Zig Ziglar. You know what I've read? I've read that your father was engaged to put a good name on the sales frame, right? Like
Right.
It was 1963 and the salespeople were selling Bibles and encyclopedias and stuff like that, probably. Can you give me an intro on that? So how did it go? People didn't like the salesman back then, right?
You know, there's always been a kind of a stigma against salespeople because they would think that, you know, they're out to get my money. They don't have something of value. And of course, we look at it from a completely different perspective. And that is that, you know, sales is the most honorable profession in the world. It's so needed. And you know, I like to study words and things like that. And in Hebrew, there's two words for the word sale. The first word describes like a transaction. As far as words go, it doesn't have much moral value. In Hebrew, every letter, every word has moral meaning behind it. And it has a very high moral value. It's a very powerful word. And what it means is this. It means that you look into the future of your prospect and then you anticipate a pain or a problem that they might have, and then you help them avoid it.
Yeah,
and there's nothing, to me, that's like, ultimately, that's what sales is about. It's having a product or service that prevents someone from going through a pain or a problem. And that is a very worthy, I mean, is there anything better than that in life?
You know, I teach people the sales skill, presentation skills and stuff. And what I strongly believe, that you cannot be a good salesman if you don't have the right mindset, if you don't have the belief system that generates good sales behavior, when you're not focused on the results of your prospect, as you said it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you, you know, selling, Dad said this, selling is essentially a transference of feeling. You know, because people, they buy logically, but really they buy emotionally. And so the reason salespeople had a bad connotation is because of the word con or con man, which meant that they could sell you something that they didn't believe in, that they knew wasn't of value.
So what was the strategy this company used or designed to put a good name on the salespeople back then?
So Dad worked in a number of companies. He did a lot of direct sales. He worked door to door selling stainless steel, waterless cookware. And then as his sales career took off, he got engaged with a lot of different companies to help them come in, and he would do sales training. And basically it all hinged on this. First, we've got to be a person of integrity, right? When we give our word, we keep our word, right? And then, as a person of integrity, that means that we would only represent a company or a product or service that gives more value to the customer, to the buyer, than it does to the seller.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's got to be a win-win thing. And so you start with personal integrity first, and second, you only represent things that bring value.
Mm-hmm.
When I ask professional salespeople, just when you solve someone's problem, when you sell your product or service, I'll often say, do you get paid a commission? And of course, everybody raises their hand. And so then I ask, well, how long does that product or service last to your customer? You know, and a lot of times it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, a lifetime. It just depends on what they're selling. And I'll say, well, who got a better deal? If it lasts 20 years, does your commission last 20 years?
Yeah.
No. And that's what it's about, right? It's about helping someone else win. And when that happens, then we can start to change the relationship. Dad said that people, they don't like to be sold, but they love help buying.
Yeah.
And that's what a true sales professional is there, is we go in and we serve, we understand their needs, and then we help them make a good decision.
Yeah. You have I think two brothers and a sister, right? Zig had four children, right?
I had 3 sisters.
3 sisters.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit how it was like to be raised by the Ziglar family, your dad and your mom?
I tell you, it was
Were you
amazing.
trained? Were you trained since you were like 2 years old?
I think he tested everything out on all of us. You know, you'll never meet a more blessed human being in the world. And the reason I say that is, you know, Dad as a speaker, maybe the greatest motivational speaker who ever walked the stage. And as good as he was on stage, he was even better off stage.
Mm.
He was, you know, always intentional. And at home, he was an introvert. He was quiet.
Really?
Yeah, but he was always engaged. And so, whenever you were having a conversation with him, it was total attention. There was no distraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was always focused in the moment of what he was doing. And so one of my friends, he said, when Dad was still alive, he said, "Hey, you know, your dad walks his talk,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a pretty good talker."
Yeah.
And so what he was really saying is that everything that he wrote, everything that he said, he actually lived it out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so growing up, I mean, just one of the lessons that one of the things that Dad taught me is he told me over and over again, he said, "Son, whatever you want to do with your life, I will support it 100%. All I ask is that you do that, whatever you choose, that you do it with 100% integrity and 100% effort."
Mm-hmm.
So what a great direction to give your kids that, look, I'm going to support you because you're all different. You all have different personalities. You have different gifts. But whatever you do it with 100% integrity and go all in, you know, give it 100% effort.
Yeah.
And I think that's great advice for all parents.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. Did you was it like the frame of the constant self-improvement? Were you like motivated to read books, to listen to audiobooks and I don't know, stuff like that?
Well, you know, from my earliest memories, we would go on trips and Dad would have the cassette tapes playing in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so a lot of it was, it wasn't, hey, you should go read that or listen to that. It was him actually reading something. And then all I had around me to do was books to read. He'd leave them everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And then we would get in the car. He wouldn't say, hey, you should listen to that. He would just turn it on. So it was more of, it wasn't you should do this. It was watch me do this.
Yeah.
And then you'll do it too.
You like received like a 45 years training, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would say absolutely. And then he would ask me the questions. I'll give you a sales question. Okay, so this is a great sales question. There was a company that he was going to speak for, and they bought 500 copies of the book Secrets of Closing the Sale. And so Dad was going to go and speak, and then they were going to sell those books there. And so they wanted him to do a video interview that they were going to play to the group before he came on to speak.
Mm.
And so in that interview, they asked the question. They said, Mr. Ziglar, what book would you tell our people that they need to read? Okay. And they were setting him up to sell the book, Secrets of Closing the Sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they turned that question to Dad, the way he answered it was this: I would tell everybody in the room to read the last book your sales manager read.
Wow. Yeah.
And so what he did is he put this
Yeah.
accountability responsibility.
Yes. Yes.
He just told everybody in the room to go ask their sales manager, what book are you reading?
Yeah.
Right. And isn't that the way life is supposed to
Yes.
be? So as owners of companies, as entrepreneurs, maybe we have salespeople on our team.
Yeah. That's something you talk about. That's persistent consistency, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Dad's, that's the Ziglar definition of work ethic. Consistency means that when you have a worthwhile goal or objective, you do it every day or as often as necessary. Persistency means that every time you do it, you take it up a notch, do a little bit extra. And that's a secret that works in everything. In getting in physical shape, if you might run for 5 minutes the first day, 6 minutes the second day, 7 minutes the third day. So you're being consistent. You're running 5 or 6 days a week, and then you're being persistent, meaning you're improving. You're either running a little bit longer time or a little bit faster time or a little bit further each time you go. And that'll work in sales. It'll work as a business owner. It'll work in any area, that concept.
So you can tell us to our audience, what is the secret or the fastest way to success?
Yeah,
so I can choose to win.
Yeah, I wrote a whole book on that.
Yeah.
It was a good story. I was speaking in Sydney, Australia, and I asked for questions. So this guy raises his hand and he says, "Tom, what is the fastest way to success?" And I'd heard all kinds of questions in my 50 years of experience, and usually it's like, what are the keys to success, or what do successful people do? But I love this guy's question because he was cutting to the chase. He was like, I want success and I want it now. And so I just, off the top of my head, responded, the fastest way to success is to replace bad habits with good habits. And that's really, and then I started studying that, and I spent a year digging into that, looking at every area of life, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the family, the financial, the personal, the career. And I started asking myself, is it really true? If you just took a little bitty bad habit, got rid of it, and replaced it with a little bitty good habit, would that lead you to success? And the answer is absolutely. Physical. Gosh, if we have the habit of drinking a soda, a soft drink that has a lot of sugar in it, and we replace 1 can of soda or soft drink every day with a bottle of water, and everything else stays the same, we'll lose 17 pounds in a year.
Yeah, that's the compound effect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Little changes.
And Darren Hardy talks about the compound effect, and it's exactly the same thing. But there's a principle that I want people to leverage here, and that is that when we get rid of a bad habit, we leave a void. And so what we need to do is be intentional about filling the void with a good habit. And you'll see this with people who quit smoking. They'll quit smoking, they quit that bad habit. That's fantastic. And then a big percentage of them will gain weight. And the reason is they replaced the bad habit with, carbs, eating or stuff that's not healthy. So if you say, I'm going to put the cigarette down and I'm going to pick up a bottle of water instead, now the water hydration is a fantastic habit. And so you don't gain weight when you do that. And so you've replaced a bad habit with a good habit. And that's what we want to do, is whether it's in our career, in our home life, our physical fitness, our spiritual life, whatever it is, that's the way we want to go.
Yeah. You know what my problem is? I think you spoke to someone, I think you transcribed that conversation in the book. Not many people can commit themselves to 15% activities through day that will make this compound in a year or so, What do you think on that?
Yeah, I think the conversation you're recalling is I gave this principle to a class, and this guy came to me at the end, and he was about he was late 20s. He was like 28, 29. And he was in the IT industry, very successful, young programmer. He had 4 kids and doing well. And I started talking about how, we should organize our life and do this and set goals. And it was around goal setting. And he said, yeah, but I know me, I'll set the goals. And then after 3 or 4 days of doing the perfect start, right, of starting my day off right, he said, I'll play video games all night long.
Yeah.
And I'll quit.
Yeah.
And I said, well, wait a second. If you achieve that goal, would it be a significant accomplishment? And he said, yeah, it'd be very significant. I have a big goal. And I go, well, like, can you put a financial dollar value on it? He said, yeah, I can. I said, well, would it be worth more than $10,000? And he said, way more than 10,000. And I said, okay, so you write that down. You're paying yourself a huge amount of money to stick with it. And then he looks at me and he says, well, I know me, I'll do it for a few more days and then I'll quit because I'll stay up all night playing video games. And then I asked him this question. I said, well, look, I'll make a deal with you. I've got a foolproof system. I said, it takes about 66 days to really create a habit. And I said, so here's what we'll do. And I guarantee it'll work. He goes, okay. I go, and I said, I guarantee it'll work or you don't get your money back. I want you to write me a check right now for $10,000. And then every day I want you to send me a text that says that you just spent 15 minutes planning and organizing your day and working on your goal. That's it. Just say I did it. And if you do that every day for 66 days, then I'll give you your $10,000 back.
Did he do it?
No. I asked him, I said, do you think it would work? He said, absolutely it would work. And I said,
Tom, I thought you have like an extra $10,000.
Do it. And I'm like, I'll put the money in escrow. I won't even touch it. And I said, at the end of 66 days, if you've texted me every day that you did it, then I'm going to give you your 10,000 back. And 66 days is about how long it takes for us to create a habit that'll stick with us.
So I have 2 questions for you. How do you know that 66 days is enough? And how come people, how come that, like that person, he knows he's going to achieve much more value than $10,000, but he isn't ready to go to take the first step or like go beyond those 3 days?
Yeah. So the answer to the first question is there's a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And I cite some of the research in that book around 66 days. There's been a lot of studies. Some people say it's 21 days. Yeah. Some people say it's 30 days.
I believe it's 100 days.
Yeah. The reality is different habits take different amount of time. And the average they found was 66 days. And here's here's what they said is that it's considered a habit, a good habit, when you miss it.
Yeah.
And your body's like, your life is like something's wrong, something's missing.
Like brushing your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth,
you know you didn't do it.
Yeah.
Right. And it takes usually about 66 days. And then if you miss it, your body's just out of balance. Okay. So that's why. Is 100 days better? 100%. 100 days is better. Now, what's interesting is if it takes 66 days to incorporate a good habit into your life, it takes about 6.6 seconds to get a bad habit in your life. And I don't know why that is, but it's just the way it is. Yeah. And the bottom line was, you've got to want something, right? You've got to have the desire.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge that most people have, especially this person in the position they were in, is they were they were comfortable with where they were. All of their needs were being met. Life was good. And so the way I would help him is either, give me the money, right? And let's get the habit. Another way is he has to reframe his why.
Yeah.
His why is not big enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of my mentors, his name is his name is Rabbi Daniel Lapin, and he said this. He said the opposite of depression is not happiness. The opposite of depression is purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so somebody who's kind of like happy where they are, they'll coast.
Yeah.
You know, they'll settle. When somebody has a clearly identified purpose of what they're here for and how they can make a difference in the world, and then you get motivated by your purpose, which means you're going to incorporate new habits all the time because it's going to equip you to be more effective in your purpose.
Yeah. The things you write about is the Trinity of Transformation, right?
Right.
If I want to change myself, I have to put these things in balance. Can you explain us the Trinity of Transformation?
Yeah. So I give an illustration, and I'll do that, and I call it a hot air balloon is what I use for the illustration. So picture, everybody's listening, picture a hot air balloon, and in the basket of the balloon, you write two things on the basket: your desire, your want, your goals, your dreams. You put that there, and then you put all your gifts and talents. Okay, and then on the top of the balloon is put the word hope right across the balloon itself. Okay, and then there's in the middle there's the furnace. Okay, and that the furnace is what heats up the balloon. It's what heats the air or helium, whatever type of balloon it is. So the first thing we do is we identify our goals, our dreams, everything that we want to accomplish in life, and we get real specific because we need a direction to go in, right? We need something to motivate us. And then we add to the basket of the balloon our gifts, our talents, our skills, everything that we're good at. And so this is what happens when we start focusing on what we're good at, and it starts rubbing against our dreams, then that starts to lift the balloon. So the balloon of hope starts to rise.
Mm-hmm.
Now the problem is that balloon will only go up like 100 feet, right? Because just because we have a dream and we have some skills doesn't really, it'll get us a little ways, but not too far. And so it stops. And so then we look at the furnace, and this is the third word that I want everybody to remember, is on the furnace, there's a knob.
Mm-hmm.
And on that knob is written the word grit. And so when we turn the knob of grit, it releases the energy and the power. So what is grit? Grit is work ethic. Grit is that, hey, you know, you get knocked down 100 times, you get up 101. The world says you can't do this. You say, watch me. So grit has to be applied, and this is very important, to my gifts and talents. Okay, the things that I'm good at. When I apply my grit, my hard energy and effort to things that I don't have skills or talents in, it's just frustrating. It's treading water. But when I apply everything I've got to the things that I'm good at already, the gifts, the way I was built, then that balloon starts to rocket. And then the next stage happens. So the balloon goes up 500 feet. Now you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can see the place where you want to go, where your dreams are going to be fulfilled, but you've got to go across an ocean and over mountains and obstacles. And so as it starts to rise, suddenly the balloon stops. And you look over the side of the balloon, and there's these ropes that are tying the balloon to the ground. And this is where we come in. This is what we coach people on. This is how Ziglar helps. And for you listening to this is what you got to realize, is we all have ropes that are tying us down, and these are what we call limiting beliefs. This is the ceiling that we've accepted we have. And so it could be somebody told you in your life, you'll never amount to anything, right? Mm-hmm. And so as soon as you start to find some success, it's like your balloon gets tied to the ground. Well, I want to cut the rope, right? I want to give you a knife so you can lean over and cut that rope. Wait a second. You're an amazing human being. I mean, you've got all this creativity, this gifts, this talents. You can do whatever you want to do. And so the question is, are you going to believe somebody else, or are you going to believe the truth?
So,
So as a Christian, I would say, you know, what's the truth I believe in? I believe in the way God created me, what He says about me, right? And that takes these limiting things off.
So is it more important, is the more important question, how to cut the ropes or why cut the ropes?
Yeah, that's good. People, I mean, people need both. Um, you know, when you understand why, I would say the why is more important. Okay. And the reason is that I've never met anybody with just one rope, right? Most people
Do you have like one or two ropes?
Yeah. Man, I'm cutting ropes every day. Uh, you know, we all have multiple ropes in different areas. And you know what? You might not have a rope in business, but you might have a rope in friendship, right? Like you can't trust anybody. You know, you got hurt by a friend a long time ago, and so you're just never going to open up. You got to cut that rope. And it doesn't mean that you let other people walk all over you. It just means that you know how to build the right kind of friendship. So when you know why you need to cut the rope and you understand the why, then you can start looking at the other ropes holding you back. How to cut it, once you know, the how makes it easier to cut. The why helps you look for what to cut. And so when you look around in your life and you say, you know, this is a great exercise. Who do I want to become? You know, when I look at my perfect life, if there were no obstacles, if money wasn't an issue, if I could do anything I wanted, what would that look like? What would the relationships look like? What would the things that I have, what would I be doing? Okay, so what's holding me back from doing that? So that's a set of ropes. The other thing is, what do I need to learn that I don't know now? So this is a rope. So, you know, hey, I want to be, I'm a nurse. I want to be a doctor. Okay. Well, fine. Go be a doctor. Yeah, but I'm 40 years old and medical school takes 5 more years. Well, how old are you going to be in 5 years if you don't go to medical school? The same, right? So you've got the rope of I'm too old. Or other people have the rope of, well, nobody in my family's ever been to college. Well, I can't go to college. Well, what? You know, thousands and tens of thousands of people every year, they're the first ones from their family to go to college. What you're telling yourself isn't true, right? You believe it, and so it is true in your life, but you need to cut the rope.
Yeah. So how you personally become aware of your rope? Do you have like a process?
You know, I use our goal setting system.
Okay.
And what I do is I write down, okay, what's my goal? Who do I want to become? And then the second thing is, what are the benefits if I achieve it? Okay. And so I've got to build up a lot of benefits to go after it. It's got to be worth my time and energy. And then what are the major obstacles or mountains to climb to get there? And so I start looking at everything that I've got to overcome in order to get there. And a lot of it could be just a belief about myself.
How do you know? But how do you know that there's a rope? How do you find a new rope?
Well, I'll tell you about
or does your wife show you? You have a rope, Tom, sometimes, or
your closest, the people who love you the most, who are closest to you, who want to see you win. A lot of times they're great at showing you the rope. I'll give you an example. I was having breakfast with one of my mentors a couple of years ago, and he says, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I'm overwhelmed. I've got more stuff than I can do." And he said, "Well, how does that make you feel?" And I said, "Well, I'll give you an example. Somebody on our team brought me a good idea. And I said, my shoulders literally slumped because I knew the idea was a really good one, but I also knew I didn't have the ability to get it done. I had too much to do already. And so it made me feel overwhelmed." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, Tom, you're asking yourself the wrong question." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "You're asking yourself how you should do that, when you should be asking who is the best person to do that." And this rope suddenly got cut off because the reality is none of us are meant to do everything.
Mm.
But we all know people who are better qualified at some things than we are.
Mm.
And so I was able to change my rope of everything depends on me, right? I cut that rope to say, hey, if it's a good idea, who should do it?
Mm-hmm.
Because usually, like that one situation, for example, it was a big project and I really only had 10% of it as my
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to turn it over to people who were experts in that area.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I realized that, wait a second, I don't have to do this. I just need to find out who the best one is to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we grow in life, right? If you want to be successful in building a business, don't ask how, ask who.
Mm-hmm.
Because your team,
First why, then who.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So, Tom, you mentioned you just mentioned a mentor, and in your book you also wrote about a few mentors in your life. I think it would be good to comment on that because I think people here in Croatia, Serbia, Slovenia would find it strange for a person who was raised by Zig Ziglar that person needs a mentor. What's your comment on that?
Yeah.
Do we need coaches? Do we need how many coaches or mentors do we need to survive and to progress in today's world?
Well, here's the thing. We talked about the fastest way to success earlier.
Yeah.
Let me give everybody a shortcut to success. It's not really a shortcut, but it's a shortcut. Find somebody who's already doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
And learn from them. That's what I call a mentor. I have coaches, I have mentors that I work with. I am a coach.
Mm.
And I look at life, and I talk about it in the book, Choose to Win. There's 7 areas of life. There's physical, mental, spiritual, family, financial, personal, and career. And it is perfectly fine to have a mentor or a coach in each of those areas. Look at any world-class athlete, any top professional soccer player. Guess what they got? I guess in Europe you call it football. Here we call it soccer, right?
Yeah.
They got a physical coach, trainer. They've got a nutritionist. They have a mental psychological coach. They probably have a financial advisor who's helping them with their enormous sums of wealth, hopefully. If they want to keep it, they do. And so literally the top in the world have coaches and mentors in every area of their life.
Yeah. Yeah, I've read your financial mentor.
Well, if you're getting started or you're Dave Ramsey, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. And let me tell you right now, with the pandemic that we're in, the people who follow Dave Ramsey are doing okay right now.
Really?
Yeah. And the reason is because they don't have debt.
But followed him for like years, right? Not like started following him a few years ago.
Yeah, he's got a whole bunch of new customers right now.
I believe so.
Right. So let me give some advice. So let's just say you're like, okay, I want a mentor. Where do I find one? So this is the key to finding a good mentor is about being a good mentee. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So look at an area of your life. Maybe it's your business, okay, and you want a mentor. So you find somebody who you know is wise in that area, who's already had success, who's well respected, who has integrity, who has the principles and values that you believe in. And then you just call them up and you ask them and you say, hey, would you mind spending 15 minutes with me? I'd like your advice. Okay. And then so in the 15 minutes, this is key. And we talk about this in the book, Born to Win, that Dad wrote. But what you do is you say, hey, thank you so much for the 15 minutes. I want to grow my business. Here's what I'm doing. What advice would you have for me? And then you write it down like crazy. And then when the 15 minutes is up, it's up. Okay. And then at the end, you say very simply, is it okay if I connect with you in a week or two? I want to report back to you everything I've done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So here's the key. If they tell you to read a book, you go read the book. Mm-hmm. If they tell you to go talk to so-and-so, You go and talk to so-and-so. Whatever they tell you, you just do it. And then you call them up and you say, can we meet for 15 minutes? I want to report back to you. And then you show them the notes, and then you show them everything that you did that they told you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they will be blown away.
Yeah.
Because people come to them all the time, ask for advice, and never take it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When somebody sees that you're passionate about what it is they're passionate about and you take their advice, you will be shocked at how much time they give you.
Yeah. And by taking their advice, you're showing gratitude for their time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What I liked about your book is your definitions of success and differences on success and significance.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of definitions of success. The worldly definition of success is, success is having more of the good things of life, right? It's the stuff that I have. It's what I accomplish. Dad said this. He said that success is the maximum utilization of the abilities that God gave you. Now think about that, because a lot of times what happens is we get on social media and we compare ourselves to other people and we feel bad about ourselves because they look like they're successful and I'm not. That's not the definition of success. Success is maximizing the abilities that you have.
So how do you track your abilities? How do you track your progress?
Well, one of the things that we've
compare yourself to.
Yeah. So one of the things we do is we look inside and we say, okay, so what are the things that I'm naturally good at? And here's a question that I would ask everybody. What problems do people bring you on a regular basis? Are they business problems, relationship problems, whatever type of problem? The reason they're bringing you those type of problems is you're probably naturally good at it. So that's a gift. So how can we maximize that? How can we do more of that? I'll use singing as an example. I can't sing, okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm like a 1 when it comes to singing. It would make no sense for me to get voice lessons and to practice singing and to try to get a record deal or get on, America's Got Talent or anything, right? Because even if I improved a great deal, I'm only going to be a 3 or a 4, and somebody who's born with it's going to be a 7 or an 8 just right out of the gate, right?
So you believe, you believe you shouldn't waste your time on the activities you're not talented.
Correct. When you're in a work environment, you have to, let's just say there's 10 things in your area of responsibility. Hopefully 5 of them are things you're naturally gifted in and talented in. That's what you want to focus. The other 5 things you have to do, let's say in sales, a lot of salespeople aren't very good with paperwork and detail. You're going to have to raise your game enough to where it doesn't detract from your overall success.
Mm-hmm.
But your ultimate goal would be to get so successful in selling that you could get an assistant or somebody on your team to help you do the paperwork, right? That they're naturally gifted in, because that's when we both win, right? So that's how that's how you elevate your game. And that's how you kind of discover what you're good at.
So what's the most important thing in life for you, Tom?
Well, it's, faith, family, and friends. So it's my spiritual relationship with God, my family, those I love. And by the way, my family's big. I pretty much adopt everybody I meet. It's like, why should I just like you? Isn't it okay if I just love you? It's just that's the one thing everybody needs, don't love me. I've got too much love. Nobody ever says that. Right. Yeah. And so, friends, I bring my friends close, and that's really what it's about. I think especially in a time like this, when the world's crazy and there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of uncertainty,
a lot of ropes, right?
Yeah.
These days.
Yeah, there's a lot of real ropes out there right now. The reality is that we got to be there for each other. The greatest thing we can do is help someone else through a tough time. And unless we're taking care of ourselves, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing I really like about your book and about your mindset is the word legacy. So you have a legacy of your father, of your family, and you're creating your own legacy. I personally believe that legacy is the most important thing we should all work on. What is a legacy and why is that important? How
Okay,
would you define a legacy?
yeah, so I'll give you several definitions.
Mm.
So here's a definition that I came up with in December of last year, and this is the best one I've found. Legacy is preparing those you love to grow through life's most difficult challenges. So we prepare those we love. Okay, so we automatically, when we think of legacy, we think of family. Okay,
Mm.
but if I own a business and I have people on my team, they're my legacy too.
Mm.
And I'm preparing them not to go through life, but to grow through life. So when we look at our kids, and that's usually the way we think of legacy, right? We're raising our kids to carry on the family name, to go out and be successful, to make us proud, and, you know, and then we equip them to raise their kids. So what are we preparing them to do? To grow through life's most difficult challenges. I wish we could take away the challenges that people face. I mean, let's face it. I mean, even without a pandemic, you know, people are going to get sick, relationships are going to end, there's going to be accidents, there's going to be businesses that fail. So isn't legacy preparing them to grow through a challenge?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we grow through a challenge, what do? We emerge stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Batterson said this. He said, an inheritance is what you leave to someone. A legacy is what you leave in someone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's what I know. If Richard Branson lost everything, like all of his businesses, he went bankrupt, all of his personal wealth, and all he had left was all the knowledge that he had. And he came to ask me for a loan, or he came to ask me to be a business partner, I would give him every dime I've got. Right?
Why, Tom? Why? How come?
Because it's who he is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what legacy is it's helping someone grow into the person God created them to become.
Yes, and that's something that marketing people would call branding yourself or branding your family, right?
Yeah.
And the Ziglar family has a few words that are characteristic to a Ziglar family. Which are those words? Which are the branding words?
Yeah. So we have six, at least
6.
six, but the ones that I remember Dad saying all the time. The first two are character and integrity.
Uh-huh.
You know, Dad said that every bit of his success was because of his character and integrity. And really, I think any family, any individual, you know, character and integrity, they got to be on your list. If you don't have integrity, any type of gain is going to be short term. There's never going to be that peace at night. And then the second two words were persistent consistency. We already talked about that. So just to make it simple, we got to have integrity. We got to work hard, right? We got to have a work ethic. We got to go make it happen. There's no free lunch. You know, we have responsibilities. And then the last two words, and this is kind of our outward branding, is hope and encouragement. When I was a little guy, I said, Dad, what do we do? He said, we sell hope.
Yeah.
Right. And so for so many people, I can't tell you how many conversations start off with, your book, your program, your dad, your speech changed my life.
Yeah.
And I said, what happened? And they said, well, you gave me some hope. You convinced me that I should try or do this. And then they said, I did it and it worked. Right. Yeah. And so all of a sudden they're cut the rope of I can't to, hey, wait a second. I was just doing it the wrong way. Now I'm doing it the right way.
Yeah, I understand. That's why I think that books are fantastic legacy. You can't force every single buyer of the book to make a change, but let's say 5%, if 5% make a significant change, it's really worthwhile to write a book, to leave it as a legacy, right? What do you say?
Well,
So,
let me ask this. If let's say there's an author or somebody who's thinking about writing a book, and if it changed one life, would it be worth it? The reality is usually when you write a book, the life that you change the most is you.
Yeah.
Right. Because it makes you think about what's really important. What do you really want to say?
Yeah.
And then what if the life you changed is somebody in your family? I mean, so yeah, if you're going to change a lot, I mean, I think there's so many things that if we, this is when I watch Dad age. Okay. So when you move from his 50s to his 60s, and from his 60s to his 70s, and from his 70s to his 80s, the sense of urgency in his life kept getting more and more intense because he knew he had less time. And I'm like, Dad, I said, Dad, you're so like, we need to get this done. We need to get this done. And I'm like, yeah, but why are you so intent? And he said, because somebody's life depends on it.
Is it really true that your father took like 3 hours every day to work on his new content, on his self-education? Is it true? Like every day from Monday till Sunday?
At least 50 years of his life.
Really?
He did that. And so he was an early riser. That's a habit I've picked up from him. So he would get up at 4:30 or 5 every day. And he would read, study, listen, write, think for 3 hours, and 2 to 3 hours every day. So at 8 o'clock, when most people are getting started, he's already had all this creativity. So here's a takeaway for everybody. If you want, somebody asked me, they said, Tom, what was the one thing that your dad did that changed his life, that made him Zig Ziglar? That was it. That was the 3 hours. Okay. Because, and here's why he did it. So I'm going to translate it to you. So what if you did the same thing, but instead of 3 hours, you just did 5 minutes? What if you learned something new every morning, just one little thing, and your reason for learning it was to benefit someone else, and then you went out and you shared that with one person that day? What if every day, 365 days during the year, you learned one thing new, you internalized it and simplified it, you put it in your own words, right? And then you just shared it with your spouse, your kids, somebody at work, a friend, to benefit them. Would that change your life? It will absolutely change your life. Why? Because your motive is to help someone else. Well, in the process of doing that, who gets helped the most? I mean, I'll give you the fruit of this. Dad, when he was 80, he had a traumatic brain injury. He fell down the stairs. He had a double brain bleed, and he lost his short-term memory. So he's in the hospital room, and it's serious. He still has brain swelling. The doctor comes in, and the doctor says, here's what's happened. This is what we're going to do. And then as the doctor's about to leave, Dad says, wait, doctor, on Thursday, this is Tuesday, on Thursday I'm speaking. There's 10,000 people there who expect me to come. Can I get out of here today so I can get ready to go and speak? And the doctor looks at him and says, Mr. Ziglar, you need to understand, you're never going to speak again like you used to speak. You need to start thinking about what you're going to do with the rest of your life. Okay. So here's a doctor telling maybe the greatest speaker ever that he's never going to speak again. So my sister Julie was there, and Julie says Dad didn't say anything. And then as soon as the doctor walked out of the room, Dad looked at Julie, and he calls her little one, right? That's the nickname. He says, little one, I still have something to say, so I guess we're just going to have to find a different way to go say it. In other words, this devastating, life-changing information didn't impact anything in Dad's personality or belief. He just knew he was going to have to figure out a new way. And so that was the day that we started the concept So Julie and Dad now traveled the world 4.5 years. He gave over 100 presentations, average audience over 12,000 people in an interview format because it was true. He'd lost his short-term memory. He couldn't remember what he said, but Julie could. And so she would ask him questions and he knew the answers. He just couldn't remember short-term what he'd said. And so did that happen because he was a genius and he thought of that response when he was on the bed? Or did it happen because for the previous 50 years, he'd been telling his brain, hey, this is who I am. This is how I think. You know, what happens in life, I have no control of, but how I respond, I have all the control. Yeah. So he accepted the fact I've lost my short-term memory. But then he went to solve the problem, which is, hey, we've got to do it differently than we did before.
But we'll do it.
We'll do it. That's non-negotiable.
So your father, So your father was a man with like a few ropes, the least amount of ropes everyone you've ever met, right? Would you say so?
I would say he's the only one that I've ever met that I don't even know his ropes because, well, I'll give you one. I mean, he never worried. He didn't have the rope of worry. I mean, about anything. Like the world could be going nuts. Never worried. And then the ropes that he did have. So he had a very, and a lot of highly successful people have this. They have an addictive, obsessive, compulsive thing, right? It's what makes you stick at it. You know, it's like, and so he learned that early in his life that he had that. And so all he did was decide that he was going to be obsessive and compulsive about positive stuff. I mean, you know, instead of alcohol or gambling or drugs or any of the bad stuff that most people are obsessive, compulsive, addictive to, he just changed it to working out and eating right and studying and speaking. See, so he took all the negatives that derail a lot of people and refocused them into things that would benefit him and his family and the people he loved.
Yeah, but if he like did so many seminars, presentations, and read like 3 hours every day, he didn't have time to feel bad about anything, right?
Yeah, there's some truth in that.
Tom, at the end, thank you really for the time. I just need your one comment on something. So we have a why, we have a how, and the thing I really like about your book is putting the commitment arrangement at the end of your book. Can you explain to our audience why is this commitment arrangement with yourself so important?
Yeah, you know, we've got to learn to keep commitments. And there's a statement that I say, when you know your why, it changes your how.
It changes your how. How does it your why change your how?
So I'll use a simple example. Some people start off as being a waiter or a waitress serving in a restaurant. Okay. If you're doing that just to make ends meet, then your service, your demeanor, your attitude might be average at best, right? Because you have to do this job in order to make ends meet, okay? But if your why is to put yourself through college or to go to a different level, and every day there's reason and purpose of why you do that, it changes how you serve. And so many people will tell you, how did you get, you know, you've got a great career. How did you get started? Oh, well, I was going to school and I had this dream and I was waiting tables and I got offered a job and that job took me to this job. Well, why did they get offered the job? Because they were doing their how with excellence, right? Yeah. They had a great attitude. They smiled. They were prompt. They were professional. And so this is what I say. Most people, they're concerned with what they're doing. Oh, what I'm doing isn't the right thing. Okay. That's important. It's important to know what your what, okay? But it's not as important as your why, because when you know your why, it changes the how, and then it opens a lot of what doors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the commitment to ourselves is when we understand our why, it drives our how.
Yeah.
And then that opens up the doors of what. In other words, we got a lot more opportunities. Dad said a positive attitude won't let you do anything, but it will let you do everything better than a negative attitude.
Definitely.
Right? There is no downside to it. So if we know our why and we let that impact how we do things, then people take notice. Dad said, he said, hey, they're gonna get a raise. And the guy said, well, how do you know his boss is going to give him a raise? And he said, well, I don't know, but if their boss doesn't give him a raise, somebody else will. It's just it's the rule, right?
Yeah.
It's the way it is.
Yeah. Tom, thank you very, very much for this inspiring conversation. I hope you'll write some other books, record audio. You also have your podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many episodes till now?
The Ziglar Show podcast, I think we're getting close to 800 episodes.
Wow.
We've
That's
been
a commitment. That's a commitment and persistency, right?
Yeah. And we have a great host of that show. And so we put 2 or 3 episodes out a week. But we've been doing it over 10 years now. So it's been that's one of the most powerful things that we can do. So I encourage you in your podcast, stick with it, be consistent. It's the greatest thing you can do.
Definitely is. It's like the frame for learning at the first point, right?
That's right.
I think I would be a completely different person if it wasn't for this podcast project. It's in its 3rd year now,
Awesome.
So Tom, thank you again very much for your time. Wish you very, very, the very best from Croatia.
All right. Thank you so much.
I will send you the numbers, how many times your podcast was listened or read, or the text read.
Perfect. I look forward to it.
Tom, thank you very much again.
Thank you.